by Brent Darnell. Thank you all for arriving and taking an hour of your day to learn about this very important topic. Before we begin, I've got a couple of items I'd like to run through with you. Please notice the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen. If you don't see a whole panel, you might see a little toolbar near the top or right-hand corner. If you expand that toolbar, you will have access to a question and answer box where you can pose questions to today's presenter, Brent Darnell. I know Brent has a very interactive webinar, and in order for this to be successful for him, for us, and for you, we will be dependent on your active participation. So for the benefit of all attendees, including yourself, please go ahead and find that Q&A box, get that expanded, and have your fingers at the ready, because we'll get started pretty quickly with some interactive components. You may also pose any questions to Brent during the webinar using that control panel, and he'll be able to pause and answer those questions as we go through. Also, before introducing Brent, I'd like to give you a little preview to something we'll talk about at the end after the presentation is over. Those of you are here today because you care about understanding human beings and the relationship dynamic. And Brent, if you want to advance the slide. We are we're producing a client experience conference this May in Durham, North Carolina. 2 days of agenda focused on understanding that human side, that human perspective, specifically when it comes to understanding your clients and how to drive a better and more effective experience with your organization. Stick around at the end for more details. At this point, I would like to introduce Brent. Brent grew up in the construction business and has worked as a construction manager for 20 years. In 2002, he started his own leadership development company where he teaches people skills to technical people and trains them like athletes. He is a graduate of Georgia Tech with a degree in mechanical engineering and a LEED accredited professional, but has also been a professional actor, stand-up comedian, playwright, and musician, as well as an adjunct professor at Auburn and Penn State, teaching emotional intelligence to their technical students. Over the past 12 years, he has worked with hundreds of companies in 24 states and 20 different countries, improving the social competence of thousands of people around the world. His book, The People-Profit Connection, written specifically for the construction industry, has garnered rave reviews, and his Tough Guy series of books has been instrumental in teaching technical people to improve their soft skills. He was recently honored as one of the top 25 newsmakers by the ENR for transforming alpha males into service-focused leaders and connecting his emotional intelligence training approach to business success. Please welcome Brent Darnell.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. So, yeah, for those of you who have taken the time to join us today, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. And so why are we talking about something called emotional intelligence? Well, several reasons. One of the reasons is the trends in the industry. I mean, when you think about it, the industry is moving toward much more collaborative project delivery methods like IPD, ILPD, Lean, Design Build. All of those are highly collaborative processes. And the problem is you'll see this typical profile for most people in the construction industry. Our emotional profile does not bode well for those kinds of collaborative processes. So we're going to learn, what is emotional intelligence and why should we pay attention to it, how is it measured, and how does it affect performance, and how does it affect the success of projects. So we're going to answer all your questions about it today. And you'll see up there that our Total Leadership Program, that's our year-long program that we do. Those are live. We also are putting all of these programs online now with the Total Leadership Library, and 5 of those will be up as of the end of this week, and then we'll have 5 more, so it'll be a total library of 10 courses of an introduction to emotional intelligence and all of the soft skills. So let's just jump right in here. I want you to think of someone that you consider to be the best of the best. Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's somebody in the industry, somebody that you just look up to that just has it all together, best of the best. And then in that question answer thing, if you could type in, how would you describe those people? What adjectives would you use? Or they have a lot of what, or they are filled with what? Just type that in, and let's see if we can get some responses here. And if you're not typing in, think about those. What adjectives would you use to describe these best of the best people in your life and in your work? Okay. All right, I'm starting to get a few here and there. So they're understanding. They make you feel valued. Excellent. And so, you know, as you're thinking about this and as you're typing these in, I got, oh, there's a big list. Confident, humble, listens well, willing to assist, respectful. Yeah, I usually get a really long list of things like that, that they're good listeners, that they have empathy, that they're motivating, that they value the other person. You know, here's some more. Empowering, express gratitude, charismatic, intelligent, empathetic, self-motivated, communicative, passion, trustworthy. Those are all excellent, excellent responses. So I do this a lot. I've done this hundreds of times, and I usually get a long list of all of those that I just talked to you about: confident and humble and charismatic and empathetic and self-motivated and communicative and make you feel valued. With the exception of the one person put intelligent, with the exception of that, I want you to pay attention to that list. Every one of those are soft skills or intangibles. Every single one. So nobody ever says, well, they're the best of the best because they have an IQ of 138, or they're the best of the best because they have a PhD. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that intelligence and technical ability is unimportant. It's extremely important, especially in a highly technical industry like construction. What I'm saying is, in a room full of smart people, in a room full of people with the same emotion or technical ability or intellectual competence, the ones who will excel, the ones who will become the best of the best, the ones who are the leaders, the ones who are the ones who just nail everything they do, those are the people with those emotional skills. So, and we don't learn these skills in college or university, and unless we come up under somebody in the field that has these skills, we really don't learn them there either. So that was my big question coming into doing what I do now is, wow, I noticed that all the best people had these soft skills, had these intangible skills, were great with people. And then the next question was, can you teach this? Can you learn these ways of being to be the best of the best? And the answer is unequivocally, yes, you can. And, this goes for everyone in the industry. This is for contractors, this is for engineers, this is for architects and designers, this is for across the board, everyone in the industry. Nobody gets this type of training in school. I mean, how many classes did you have on relationships or collaboration or your own emotional intelligence? My guess is probably none, maybe one, but the schools that I'm working with are starting to really pay attention to that, and I'm teaching classes on emotional intelligence and relationships and collaboration and team, and teaching them how to create that on projects, both projects, in their course curricula, and also when they get out of school and they have projects that they're working on in the real world. So these are skills that you need. So, and unlike, real quickly, unlike intellectual quotient, unlike your IQ, and unlike personality tests, which are fairly static throughout your life, emotional intelligence can be learned and improved. And I'll show you some case studies that exhibit that show you that. So I'm going to start with some basics of emotional intelligence, and I'm going to show you a couple of photos, and I want you to type in again, type in how this photo makes you feel. What's going on with you internally? What kind of emotions are raised when you see this photo? I'll give you 30 seconds or so. Okay, I'm getting rejected, despair, pain, anxious, and someone wrote empathy. Good. Sad, frustration, hurting. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to show you one more picture, and I want you to write in again. And some people put that they wanted to help this person. So here's the second photo. What are you feeling now? Okay, we got happy and smiling and bonding. Good. Love, friendship, joy, hugs, peace. All these really good positive. Nostalgia, lucky boy, warmth, content. Excellent. All right, so here's my question. Those were just photographs, and yet we elicit this really strong emotional responses for each one. Why do you think that is? And that's just a rhetorical question, because I'm going to tell you the answer. But why do you think that is? When we see a smiling face, we tend to react with a smile. And when we see someone in despair or crying or sad, we tend to experience that same emotion or be pulled into empathetically trying to help that person or figure out what's going on. And I get a lot of answers for this. We have this natural empathy. Most of us have this natural empathy, but it goes beyond just empathy. It goes beyond just relating to someone on an emotional level. Actually, we have mirror neurons in our brain, and mirror neurons, there's all these synapses that happen in our brains. When we see someone smiling, our mirror neurons light up and match their mirror neurons. So when you're smiling or when you're sad and the other person across from you feels that same emotion, you're actually affecting the physiology of the person sitting across from you. Wow. That's a powerful thing to know. So it's not just anecdotal, it's not just sociological, it's not anthropological. It's physiologically, you're affecting the physiology of the person sitting across from you based on the emotional state that you're in. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. One neuroscientist put it this way. He said, we are only separated by our skins. So we affect people in a much more profound way than we ever thought before. These mirror neurons light up and people can feel the same emotions that we're feeling. Well, think about the consequence of that. If you're having a bad day and you're walking around the project or you're walking around the office in a bad mood and you're frowning and you're really kind of angry about stuff, you are literally infecting people around you with that negative emotion. Their mirror neurons are lighting up and matching your emotional state, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, it's happening. So that is a really powerful thing to know. So think about emotions are contagious, literally, from a physiological standpoint. So keep an eye, especially you leaders out there, keep an eye on your emotional states because they're affecting the people around you. That's the first thing I want you to take away from this is emotions are contagious. And to be able to manage your emotions, to be able to positively affect other people is a really powerful skill to have. But it goes way beyond just emotions being contagious. Oh, and by the way, how many of you, this is a rhetorical question as well, how many of you know somebody whose mirror neurons may not light up the way yours light up? Because what they're studying now with autistic people, on autistic kids, are mirror neurons because their mirror neurons don't light up the same as a normal person's mirror neurons, so they can't discern emotions as well. They can't tell a happy face from a sad face in extreme cases of autism. And it's because their mirror neurons aren't creating that connection. But again, I said it goes so far beyond just being contagious. Emotions affect so many areas of our lives. It affects our stress levels, how we manage emotions. It affects even our well-being. Emotional states actually create a magnetic field that can be measured up to 3 or 4 feet away from the body. So we feel those magnetic fields, we feel those emotional states of people that are near us. And you know this to be true. Think about it. Have you ever walked into a room where something real tense was going on? Before anybody said anything, before anything happened, you knew that something was wrong there. And you said probably or thought the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. That's that emotional energy that you're feeling. So emotions create energy and can affect outcomes and can affect other people. So it affects problem solving, creative problem solving. When you're in a stress state, your thinking brain actually shuts down because when you're in this low-level fight or flight mode, there's no need to involve the thinking brain. There's no cognitive processes that need to happen when you think you're in danger. So the thinking brain shuts down. So being able to manage those stress states and change that emotional state into something that's more calm allows you to solve problems easier, allows you for a better creative problem solving. So it actually, your emotional states affect your health and well-being. It affects cognitive processes in your brain. So to be able to understand your emotions and manage your emotions, that's something that's what we teach. Because emotional intelligence, that's what this is about. And if I were to have to give you a definition, I would say that first of all, let me tell you what emotional intelligence is not. It is not touchy-feely. It is not group hugs. It is not about being nice to people, okay? People have this misconception that, oh, you're just going to teach me to be nice. Well, that's not what this is about at all. It's about understanding your own emotions and managing them and understanding the emotions of others and managing them for the best outcomes. Sometimes that means being assertive. Sometimes that means being empathetic. So it's using those emotional, being able to comprehend them and manage them, again, for the best outcomes, okay? That's what emotional intelligence is about. It's an amazing journey for a lot of people because they've never been exposed to this concept. And then once they do this, it's life-changing for many of the people that we work with. So we talked about these mirror neurons. So keep an eye on your emotional states. Keep an eye on how you're infecting others. Is it a positive infection or is it a negative infection? Here's another thing that I find very interesting, and several people put it in the best of the best. How do you make people feel? Because all things being equal, don't we work harder and more effectively for people we like? Isn't that true? And guess what? We like them in direct proportion to how they make us feel. And several people put that the in the best of the best. That yes, there's people do work harder and more effectively for people they like. And so that's my question is how do you make people feel? Do you make them feel valued? Do you make them feel smart? Do you make them feel like they're contributing? Or do you make them feel stupid or not essential? Or do you give them really cruddy things to do, showing that you value them less? So this is, again, working with this emotional context with people and not just the technical part of what they're doing every day. Okay. All right. So yeah, what is it? It's not about any of this, right? And I want to be really clear on that because a lot of people have this misconception about emotional intelligence. It's really not about any of this stuff. Although that group hug's looking pretty good. So maybe you guys, if you're in a group, you can do a nice group hug at the end. All right. So how many of you, again, rhetorical question, have taken one of these personality tests, DISC or Myers-Briggs? Anything that gives you some self-knowledge and understanding of self, I think, is valuable. The problem is in the application, I think. A lot of these personality tests, which, by the way, is fairly static throughout your life. If you're a D, you're probably going to be a D forever. And same thing with Myers-Briggs. If you're an ENFJ, you're probably going to be an ENFJ forever. There's some little, shifts here and there, but it's fairly static. And here's the way these personality tests work. They put you in a quadrant, and you're either a color or an animal or a letter or whatever. And then they're going to teach you how to get along with the other three quadrants. Now, there can be some value in that in terms of a team setting if everybody takes the same evaluation. I get that. But in just one-on-one conversations and one-on-one, especially contentious things that you encounter with people in difficult situations, unless you ask them to take the test before you talk to them, this is kind of a useless exercise. So emotional intelligence, number one, it's very dynamic. It changes over your lifetime. You can learn things like empathy and assertiveness. And the second thing is, you don't have to know the other person's type or profile, because if you have good empathy skills and good self-awareness, you can connect on an emotional level to anybody in any situation. So that's one of the reasons I gravitated toward this emotional intelligence work. And there's a lot of those things out there. There's Herman brain dominance and 16PF, and there's thousands of these tests out there. And again, anything that gives you good self-awareness, that's fine, but this is really different than that. It's not the same as a personality test. All right. So we use something called the EQI 2.0. And let me go through this real quick. The first, it starts with your own self-perception. So this is 133 it's a self-perception evaluation. 133 questions, takes about 20 minutes. Now we do have a 360 version if we feel like we need to get some other input into our emotional profile. But there are also validity scales built into this evaluation, so we can tell if you're trying to sort of be better than you are. I don't have that problem very much in this industry. It's almost as if people want to be accurate and they want it to be them, a representation of them. So we don't have that issue very much at all. So it starts with self-perception, your self-regard and confidence, self-actualization. That's feeling like you have a sense of purpose and meaning in your life, and emotional self-awareness, being able to perceive your own emotions. Then the second part of this wheel is the self-expression. So it's emotional expression. Once you perceive them, can you appropriately express your emotions? Assertiveness, being able to assert yourself, speak your mind, set limits and boundaries. and independence. That's just being independently motivated. It's kind of a self-starter, that level of independence. Then the third part of this wheel is interpersonal. So once you understand yourself and you're expressing, how do you interact with others? And so how do you maintain interpersonal relationships? What's your empathy like? Do you understand others' emotions? And then social responsibility, that's the team stuff and the group stuff and the good neighbor stuff. How do you sacrifice yourself at times for a group or a team or a community? Then there's also a decision-making component, which is very important. How do you handle impulse control? Do you just react to things? Reality testing, being able to see the real, black and white sort of thinking, objective reality, and then problem-solving skills, which is important. Most people score very, very high in that. And then there's a stress management component, and this component, we're seeing a lot of stress in the industry, especially now, getting lots of work and not being able to hire enough people back. Stress is going up, so that's flexibility. People that are flexible usually have lower levels of stress. Stress tolerance, how do you handle that emotional stress? And then optimism. People that are highly optimistic usually have lower levels of stress as well. And then that whole thing, just, you look at an overall picture of well-being or levels of happiness day to day. That's another component of this whole model. So that's what we use for our evaluations and we also do a physical evaluation based on physical symptoms. So we tie in the emotional and the physical, and in these programs we talk a lot about stress and sleep and nutrition and exercise and how that affects our performance, not only our emotional performance, but just cognitive performance and physical performance and having energy at the end of the day for yourself and your family. So let's take a look at some case studies. Here's an interesting one. This is a 30-year-old financial consultant. She took the Myers-Briggs. She was an ESFJ. She has an IQ of 138, so she's really smart. Top of her class MBA from an Ivy League school. This woman went through 6 jobs in 4 years. She was fired from every job, 6 jobs in 4 years. Well, why? I mean, she had all the pedigree. She, top of her class MBA, really smart. And when we look at her emotional profile, we can tell why. Take a look at her self-regard at the top. It's really high. So this is a bell curve distribution, just like an IQ test. So 100 is the mean or top of the bell curve. She's well into the above average range. So that's normally a really good thing, but too much self-regard becomes arrogance, especially if you haven't balanced that self-regard with great relationships and empathy skills. And you can see that they're quite low. So she has these great leadership skills, but because she hasn't balanced those skills with good interpersonal skills, she comes across as arrogant and really aggressive. She has really high assertiveness, high independence, kind of a loner. Look at her emotional self-awareness. It's quite low. She didn't really understand her own emotional states. Her self-actualization, she's not finding much purpose, getting fired from 6 jobs. And then take a look at her interpersonal skills. Interpersonal relationships, 68. Now think about if somebody you knew had an IQ of 68, that would be quite low. This is how good this woman was with relationships. She also had relatively low empathy, low social responsibility, not a team player, really high problem-solving skills, lower reality testing. She really couldn't understand why this was happening to her. And then the others are sort of in the middle, but look at her happiness levels lower as well. Now, this is the reason this woman was getting fired from all these jobs. In fact, her last job, one of her clients brought a lawsuit against the company. So this woman was kind of a terror, really assertive to being aggressive, probably condescending, didn't really understand how her actions affected others because of the low empathy. She wasn't very good with relationships. And see, we look at the deltas, or what the deltas between certain competencies can give us some real clues as to behavior and performance. So when you see that low of empathy, that high of assertiveness, along with low social responsibility and high independence, those are people that are loners. They would prefer to be alone. They don't work very well in groups or teams. With the high assertiveness and lower empathy, that's an alpha profile, aggressive profile. And then with lower impulse control and higher assertiveness, that's frustration, impatience, and anger. So this woman was this angry loner, really smart, very confident, but didn't bode well for any type of collaborative process, like planning your financial future. So that's case study 2. Now, there's another case study that's next, and this person is a high school educated construction worker with an average IQ. He started his own home building business, and he was highly successful. Extremely successful guy. Well, look at his profile. Why did this Harvard, MBA, really smart woman have such failure in the business world? Well, this guy is highly successful. Well, first you'll notice that it's a much more balanced profile, and that's what we go for when we work with people, is more balance. He's got assertiveness of 106, but see, his empathy is only 99. So she had a 30+ differential between assertiveness and empathy. He's got a 7-point difference. That can be meaningful in some ways, but it's probably not a big deal for him, because look at his interpersonal relationship score, 127. This guy is great with people. People love to work with him, love to work for him. He also has great problem-solving skills, great stress tolerance, high levels of optimism, upbeat person. So this guy's great to be around. Now, see, he also has high self-regard, assertiveness, and independence, but he's balanced that with much higher interpersonal scores, right? Especially his interpersonal relationship skills. So this guy's kind of a superstar. Even though he didn't have the IQ this woman had, he didn't have the education this woman had, he's successful, she's not. Now, the next slide is over 500 construction managers, people who manage some part of the construction process. This includes architects, engineers, field people, superintendents, assistant superintendents, project managers. So in your head, think, what are some of the highs going to be of those 15 competencies there? What do you think some of the high scores will be? That's a rhetorical question. Now, what do you think some of the low scores will be? Think of all the construction managers and people that manage some type of the construction or design process that you know. Well, let's take a look. Here we go. All right, so you see you don't have this big of deltas, because this is an average of over 500 people, okay? So let's take a look at some of the things that jump out. First of all, you can see that things like stress tolerance, reality testing, sort of black-white thinkers, assertiveness and independence are the high scores. The low scores, empathy, interpersonal relationships, social responsibility, flexibility, emotional self-awareness. And those are frighteningly consistent. Every group we've ever worked with just about has this same profile. And with a delta between empathy of 94 and assertiveness of 105, these people come across as fairly aggressive. Maybe they don't listen as well. They don't take into account other people's input or opinions. Let's put it this way. 500 people who work in construction and engineering in the AEC industry couldn't get any of the interpersonal skills to the mean or average. All of those are below the average of 100. Now, what is that, the effect of that on all these highly collaborative project delivery methods like IPD and ILPD and Lean and Design Build, Design Assist? We don't have the emotional skills to be able to adequately carry out those collaborative processes. That's a big issue. That's why I'm getting lots of phone calls, because you can have all the process in place you want. If you don't have people that are good with trust and relationships and collaboration and communication, it's all for nothing. So that's why we've even created a program we call Connects, which is a project-based program where everybody takes this evaluation, we create development plans, so we have project metrics and personal metrics and even health and wellness metrics, so that everybody's working to help each other attain all of these goals on a project. Also, everybody's working at their highest level of performance, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And if everybody's doing that, your project can help be successful. So there we go. That's the 500 construction managers. And again, the way the industry's going, this is a real problem. And that's why emotional intelligence keeps, it doesn't go away. Everybody's figuring out, how do we address this? How do we get our people to be good with collaboration and relationships? And this is a way to do it. It's a way to measure and improve. All right, so here's one case study. This is a guy named Dennis. He's a superintendent. I want you to look at his before scores. This guy was in bad shape. He was working probably 80 to 100-hour weeks for extended periods of time on a very difficult project. And Dennis was smoking about 2 packs a day, and he wasn't being able to visit with his family very much. He would come home, eat, go to bed, do it all the next day. So look at his profile. I mean, this guy was in complete and utter burnout. Low self-actualization. He had lost his sense of purpose. He wasn't connecting with others. Relationships is a sure sign of burnout if you're low in relationships. Low stress tolerance, low happiness. All of those are burnout indicators, okay? So the first thing we did with Dennis was we taught him some stress management techniques, and we encouraged him to create a little more balance in his life. And after a year-long process of coaching, follow-up, and him really working on these, look at the differences. This is amazing. Now, the statisticians tell me that a point differential of 5 points or more could indicate a shift in behavior. So Dennis, they even asked me, like, are you sure this is the same guy that took the evaluation before and after? So this guy changed his life, turned his whole life around, he pulled himself out of burnout. His project was delivered on time, within budget, and he was promoted as a result. But he was headed down a bad road. He quit smoking. He lost weight. I mean, this is what this work can do with emotional intelligence, and especially bringing in the physical component. So Dennis is a new human being. So let's take a look. Let's see if there's another. Hold on one second. Here we go. All right, so this is a pretty interesting case study. This is a group of 8 top executives from a general contractor, top 200 general contractor. And I met with them for one day. They evaluated themselves. Obviously, these are their scores. And then I spent a day with them just so they could see what their subordinates were going through, the process. They created the development plans. They did, they created plans with the best intentions of carrying out those plans. And then I went away because there wasn't really a program. Well, fast forward 3 years, and these guys took the evaluation again because guess what? They ended up in a full-blown program. Why? Because the biggest comment I get from these programs is, my boss needs to take this program. So they ended up in a full-blown program, and they took the evaluation again. So we did the first one at the end of 2004, and this was the beginning of 2008. So 3 years went by. Even though they had created development plans, look at what happened. Nothing happened. So remember, a 5-point differential can indicate a shift in behavior. So they actually got worse with relationships and they got better with flexibility. Everything else is statistically exactly the same as where they were 3 years ago. And we've all experienced this, haven't we? we call them three-ring binder programs, where you meet for a day or a weekend and you get your three-ring binder, and what do you do with it? You put it on a shelf and you forget about it and you never look at it again. Until a few years later, you need the binder for something. So you take everything out and throw them away and you reuse the binder for something else. Probably not using as many binders anymore, but I imagine you've got some of these up on your bookshelf as well. That's why our programs are a year long. We found that the emotional changes actually begin about the 4 to 5 month mark. And then we just, about the 7 or 8, 9 month, they become pretty solid, and then we just give it a few extra months. So this was a big lesson for us. No three-ring binder programs, because we say it a lot. Awareness alone will not change behavior. Because if that were true, we would all be pretty brilliant, because everybody knows what to do. It's about creating the methods to be able to actually shift those behaviors. That's the reason for the year-long program. And for our Connects, or our project-based program, it's through the course of the project. So we're working on these all the time. All right. So look what happened after a year-long program. Remember, a 5-point difference is a change in behavior. Well, they've got 11-point increase in empathy. You've got a 10-point increase in the interpersonal composite, which is all the interpersonal skills. 11-point increase in relationships. 11-point increase in self-actualization. Big increase in happiness. So this is what happens after a year-long process with lots of coaching and follow-up and lots of accountability built in. Right? So you got to have that for this kind of learning. It's not like cognitive learning. It's more like learning to play a musical instrument or learning a language. It takes a lot of repetition and a lot of time. All right. So when is this beneficial? Lots of areas, a new job, enhancing your old job and getting promoted, getting married, raising kids. By the way, for those of you with kids, I recommend a great book a lot. It's called Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child by John Gottman. Excellent book. Helped me get my nieces and nephews through a particularly bad divorce, one of my brothers. Difficult work situations, home situations, stress, being able to recognize and manage your stress and those emotions. Any major life shift, death of a loved one, or an illness, or a new kid, or a new home, or a new job. Busting through those career walls, because here's what happens with a lot of people in the industry. They get promoted because they're good at managing the process, and then they get promoted to such a high state that they're no managing processes, they're managing people, and they sometimes crash and burn because nobody's ever taught them how to manage people. So this is a way to bust through those limits. Also, these young people, boy, they're so smart and they get things so quickly, and this may be the missing piece for them to get them into leadership positions very quickly. And your own health and wellness, of course, another great reason for emotional intelligence. All right, so I got a couple of resources for you guys, and then we'll open it up for some questions. But I'm putting all of these soft skills, including an introduction to emotional intelligence, in an online library. My book, The People-Profit Connection, that Ryan mentioned in the beginning, the Tough Guys Survival Kit, which includes relationship skills for tough guys, communication and presentation skills for tough guys, and stress management, time management, and life balance for tough guys. All of these are available on Amazon. I also have a meditation and visualization CD, which will help with stress if you're stressed. And then I have a book called The Tao of Emotional Intelligence. It's a book and it's an app, which you can get, that teaches 16 different emotional competencies. So all of that's available. Info is available, including the Connects program I talked about, the project-based program. It's all available on my website at www.brentdarnell.com. Just click on the tabs at the top, and at the store shopping thing at the end, we'll link to all of these things if you want to check them out. And anything I can do to help you after this webinar, just contact me. If I can be a resource or steer you in the right direction, I'd love to help. All right, so Ryan, back to you, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Hey, Brent, thank you so much for giving some great insights to the power of emotional intelligence. I know many of you are here today because you respond to the message we bring of a smart focus on clients and understanding what makes client ticks, what's going on in their head, and how do you shift an organization of technical people to be biased towards a sensitivity and an empathy for the client. We're going to take 2 days and explore that topic in depth at our Client Experience and Professional Services Conference in Durham coming up late this spring. We have experts literally coming from around the world. We have a consultant from PricewaterhouseCoopers in Sydney flying in to share how you can go about mapping what your client experience is. What are all of the touch points? What's their journey? What's the client journey from the marketing through the sales and contract process through project delivery and closure? And if you understand what that journey looks like, can you design a more effective journey? We have a great keynote speaker, Stan Phelps, who talks about what the drivers for real loyalty are. He talks about how you don't get credit just for being competent. You get credit for doing something different and better than anyone else. And what does different and better mean? And it's maybe not the stuff you think it might be. So we have two tracks. One track focused on voice of the client, listening and acting and responding to what your clients are telling you. We also have a track focused on broader client experience topics for those who want to go a little more high level and talk about the bigger picture. It's not just listening to clients, it's really managing and designing the experience with you. Please check out the information. You can learn more at clientexperience.org, and you've probably seen some promotional material from us as well. So do take a moment to look over that. We'd love to see you there and talk about more of these kind of items. So with that promotion through, hopefully, Brent, you've got some questions in your question box, and you can take it away and start responding to some of the questions.
Well, there's a question about some techniques to improve your EQ, your emotional quotient. Well, the first thing I always recommend to people is build in some kind of reflection time every day. You call that prayer time, meditation time, me time, quiet time, but build that in as many days as possible, either early in the morning before everyone gets up or late in the evening after everyone's gone to bed. It increases your own self-awareness and really helps with tapping into what you want to do to improve your interactions with other people. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is if you want to do a total online experience of, we have the Total Leadership Library online, and it's I'm giving a hell deal. So check it out and download the courses on my website. And if you're interested, email me and I'll work something out with you and we can get you going on that. It includes an evaluation as well as all the resources you need to create development plans and improve. The other thing is the Tao of Emotional Intelligence, the app and the book. There is a little test, emotional intelligence test in that book as well that you can take to get your emotional profile and see if it matches the industry profile. And also, again, the online courses will allow you to create some development plans and get the resources to improve your empathy or your assertiveness or your own self-awareness. Those are couple of things that come to mind. Let's see what else we got. Any other questions? I've had some people, this is really interesting, but a lot of people will tell me, I just don't think our company culture or whatever is ready for something like this. And I get that. I understand that. But just know that there's always resistance. I mean, if I if I ran and hide every time there was resistance to this work, I would not have been in business for 16 years. There's always initial resistance, and right on the home page of my website, it says still skeptical, and everybody is skeptical going into this work. I promise you, even the ones that say they're not, they are. So there's always that initial resistance and skepticism. It's about talking to them in the context of this is about neuroscience. This is how your brain works. And this is about physics. It's about energy. So I put it in the context of neuroscience and physics. And that's pretty easy to understand that, hey, your brain works this way, and these emotional states affect all these other things. And also, people feel energy, and you're made of energy. So it's about tapping into and understanding those concepts. All right. Okay, I've got another one. How do you suggest to someone that they need help with this without insulting them? You know, I've yet to found anybody with just a perfect emotional profile. Everybody seems to be working on something. They're just working on different things. So my advice, I guess, to the person that asked this question is, why don't you start with your own emotional stuff and maybe say, hey, I've been working on my own stuff. I've been working on my assertiveness or my empathy, and it's really created some cool changes in my life and how I interact with others. And then share with them that process. Maybe it's an evaluation or a great book that you read. And you could start with the People Profit Connection, my book. It's written for the industry, and they might even recognize themselves in there. There's a whole chapter on alpha males in that book. So I think it's about leading by example, or getting people to look at your example of you working on your own emotional competence that will allow them to say, wow, they might even approach you, say, what have you been doing? Wow, I see that you're making some really cool changes in how you interact with others. How do you do that, right? Here's another one. How does improved EQ help a project manager respond to critical feedback from a client? Well, critical feedback from people it takes self-awareness and understanding how people are perceiving you, and it takes empathy skills. Truly listening and understanding what emotional state that client is in, so that when they're giving you feedback, it's probably an issue, and they're probably either fearful or angry about something, and it's being able to understand that and then address those emotional parts of those conversations head on and say, wow, that must have been really frightening for you, or I don't blame you for being angry about, when we did this to your building or missed a deadline or whatever that was. So all of these critical conversations that you have with anyone, with a subordinate, with a client, with somebody above you, it's about emotional management. It's about understanding your emotional states, understanding theirs, and managing those in both to get the best outcome. So it's vital that you hone your emotional skills to be able to deal with these situations as they come up. And there's a lot of these situations on projects. It's very contentious usually, and there's lots of these critical conversations that need to take place. One other thing that people seem to ask a lot of is, can you really learn this stuff? Can you really learn empathy or self-awareness? And I'm telling you, absolutely you can, absolutely. Because I wouldn't be in business for 16 years if that weren't true. Again, it's more like learning a language or learning an instrument. It takes a lot of time and repetition and coaching and follow-up and accountability, but it is absolutely possible. And I've had people just turn their lives around and recreate connections with estranged kids and wives and husbands, and I mean, it's amazing what this work can do. So, so we're running out of time. So I'm gonna wrap it up and hand it back to Ryan. But again, if I can help you guys with any resources, there's tons of resources on my website. There's tons of ways to apply this either on a project level or an individual level or online on a self-paced kind of format. So it's really up to you how you want to dive into this emotional intelligence work. But if you just need help or need a question answered or resources, just email me and go to my website and you can connect with me there. And I so appreciate you guys being here. And Ryan, thanks for having me. And I'll turn it back to you.
Hey, Brett, thank you so much. Those of you who stuck around to the end, before you disappear, we will, as we always do, ask for your feedback about this webinar. So please look for a feedback request coming soon. Since we have a guest speaker today who does have a book, as we often do when we have an author in our midst, when you respond to the feedback request, if you would like a copy of Brent's book, just mention it in your comment somewhere, and we'll be sure to get a copy for you so you can have that as well. Thank you all for sticking around for your questions and participation, and look forward to hearing your thoughts. We will, of course, share them with Brett, and any questions or other items that come up, we'll be sure to work to get you a good answer. Thank you again, and have a great day.